Ruth's hands shook as she tore the notice from the frozen post. The paper was stiff with ice, the corners curled, the ink blurred by snow. She read it once, then again, then a third time, like reading it might make it disappear. Wanted a cook for winter, room, board, and honest wages. Caleb Thornton, Ridgeback Ranch. Behind her, 3 children huddled inside a broken wagon. Their breath rose into the air in thin white clouds, like prayers that might never be answered. The mule was exhausted. The wheels creaked. The blankets were too thin. Winter was winning. Her youngest son, Benny, slept curled against his sister, a fading bruise still visible on his temple. Purple had turned to yellow, but Ruth knew some wounds never healed. That bruise was the reason she had run. 3 nights ago, her husband Ezra had thrown their child against a wall. That was the night Ruth stopped surviving and started running. She did not know if the rancher would take them. She did not know if the notice was still good. She only knew one truth that burned in her chest. If Ezra found them first, none of them would survive the winter. "Mama?" Sammy's voice came from behind her. He was 10, but his eyes were older, always watching, always waiting. "Is someone coming?" "No, baby," Ruth said, though she did not believe it herself. "Not yet." She folded the notice and tucked it inside her coat like it was a lifeline. "Get your sister and brother. We're going to find this ranch." The road to Ridgeback Ranch took 4 hours through snow and wind. The mule stumbled more than once. Ruth held the reins tight, forcing herself to think only of the next mile, the next breath. Brace sat silently, her 7-year-old eyes empty in a way that broke Ruth's heart. She had not spoken since the night Ezra nearly killed her brother. When the ranch finally appeared, the sun was sinking low. Smoke curled from a chimney. A house stood strong against the cold. A barn nearby. Warmth. Life. Ruth stopped at the gate and waited. A man stepped out of the barn. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face carved by years of wind and work. His eyes were sharp but tired, like a man who had buried something and never stopped carrying it. He walked toward them slowly. "Ma'am," he said, "you lost?" "No, sir." Ruth lifted her chin. "I saw your notice in town. You're looking for a cook." His eyes flicked to the children, then back to her. That notice was for one person. "I know." Her voice stayed steady, though her chest felt tight. "But my children are quiet. They'll help. I'll work dawn to dark. I don't complain." He studied her for a long moment. "Where's your husband?" The lie was ready. She had practiced it for days. "Dead," she said. "Fever 6 months ago." The word tasted like ash. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Thank you." The wind cut through her shawl. Ruth swallowed hard. "Please," she said, "just one winter. I'll sleep in the barn if you want. Just don't turn us away." The man looked at Benny's small form, at Sammy standing guard like a soldier, at Grace's hollow eyes. Something shifted in his face. "You'll stay in the house," he said. "Barn's no place for children." Ruth's breath caught. "My name's Caleb," he added. "Let's get you inside before you freeze." The house was small but warm. A fire burned low. It smelled like coffee and wood smoke, and something Ruth had almost forgotten. Safety. "It ain't much," Caleb said, "but it keeps out the cold." "It's perfect," Ruth said, her voice breaking. The children slept in the back room. Ruth sat awake all night, listening for hoofbeats that never came. Sammy kept watch beside her, a broken stick clutched in his hand. "He'll find us," her son whispered. "Not this time," Ruth said, even though she did not know how. Morning brought the smell of biscuits and bacon. Caleb sat at the table, eating in silence, wonder on his face. "That ain't burnt leather," he said. "I don't lie," Ruth answered before she could stop herself. The children emerged slowly. Benny smiled for the first time in weeks. Grace stayed silent. Sammy watched Caleb like a threat. "Eat," Caleb said simply. "Winter don't play nice." Days passed. Ruth worked until her hands ached. The pain meant purpose. Benny followed Caleb everywhere. Grace helped in the kitchen, still silent. Sammy worked hard but never relaxed. One evening, Caleb spoke quietly. You're safe here. Whatever you're running from can't get you here. Ruth wanted to believe him. A week later, a letter arrived. No name, no return address. Caleb handed it to her. One line stared back at her. I know where you are. The paper slipped from Ruth's fingers. Who's looking for you? Caleb asked gently, her secret shattered. My husband, she whispered. He's alive. Caleb did not step away. Snow fell heavy. Somewhere in the darkness, Ezra was coming, and the storm was just beginning. Ruth did not sleep after the letter arrived. She sat at the kitchen table long after the fire burned low, staring at the door as if Ezra might step through it at any moment. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow felt alive. Caleb paced the room, slow and steady, like a man measuring the ground before a fight. He checked the locks twice. Then, a third time, he loaded his rifle and leaned it by the door. He's close, Ruth whispered. He never gives up. Caleb stopped pacing and looked at her. Then neither do we. The children felt the change even before Ruth told them. Sammy watched the windows more than usual. Grace stayed close to Ruth's side. Benny stopped laughing. When Ruth finally told them the truth, she did not soften it. My husband is coming, she said quietly. But he will not take you, not ever.
Sammy's jaw tightened.
We won't let him. That night, snow fell hard, covering tracks, hiding signs. Caleb moved the children's beds into the main room and blocked the doors with heavy furniture. He taught Sammy where to hide, where to run if things went wrong. You listen to me, Caleb told him. If I say run, you take your brother and sister and you run. You don't look back. Sammy nodded, his face pale but determined. 2 days later, the first rider came. Caleb saw him from the porch just before dusk. One man, riding slow, watching the house. Inside, Caleb said calmly.
Well,
Ruth pulled the children back. Her heart hammered so hard it hurt. The rider stopped at the gate. He did not dismount. He only stared. Then he turned and rode away. He's scouting, Ruth whispered. Caleb nodded. Means more are coming. That night a second letter appeared. Nailed to the fence. You should have stayed. Ruth crumpled it in her fist. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were hard now. He thinks fear will bring me back, she said. He's wrong. Caleb watched her carefully. We can leave. Head north. Hide. Ruth shook her head. He'll follow. He always does. This ends now. The next morning, a stranger arrived. A man in his 30s, dark-haired, worn down by guilt. He stood at the gate with empty hands raised. My name is Harlan, he said. I'm Ezra's brother. Ruth's blood went cold. Caleb stepped between them, rifle raised. Say what you came to say. Harlan swallowed. I came to warn you. Ezra has a warrant. He's telling everyone Ruth kidnapped the children. Ruth felt the room spin. He paid a judge in Kansas, Harlan continued. He's coming with men. Lawmen. Liar, Sammy spat. Harlan flinched. I deserve that. I watched him hurt you. I did nothing. I won't do nothing anymore. He pulled papers from his coat. Letters. Names. Statements from other women. There were others, Harlan said quietly. He hurt them too. Ruth read the words through tears. She was not alone. She had never been alone. We can stop him, Harlan said, if you're willing to fight. Caleb looked at Ruth. This is your choice. Ruth thought of her children, of Benny's bruise, of Grace's silence, of Sammy growing up too fast. I'll fight, she said. The plan was simple and dangerous. Ruth would leave to gather witnesses. Harlan would help her find them. Caleb would stay and protect the children. I won't leave them, Ruth said, her voice breaking. Caleb took her hands. You're leaving to save them. I swear they'll be safe. She believed him. Telling the children was the hardest part. Benny cried. Grace pressed a drawing into Ruth's hand. Sammy said nothing for a long time. Come back, Grace whispered, the first word she had spoken in weeks. I will, Ruth promised. I swear. The morning Ruth left, snow covered the land like a clean slate. Caleb walked her to the wagon. "Hurry back," he said quietly. She looked at him, this man who had become her anchor. "I will." As the wagon rolled away, Caleb stood on the porch, watching until she disappeared. 3 days later, the riders came. 4 men this time. Armed, confident. Caleb stood on the porch, rifle steady. "We have a warrant," the lead man said, "for Ruth Mallister and her children." "There's no one here by that name," Caleb replied. The deputy smiled thinly. "We tracked her here." "You can turn around," Caleb said, "or you can try your luck." Guns hovered near holsters. The air felt ready to break. Caleb fired first. The bullet struck the dirt at the deputy's feet. "Leave," Caleb said. Now. They left, but not before the deputy called back. "This ain't over." Caleb's legs gave out when they were gone. He sat on the steps, breathing hard. That night, he set traps, barricaded windows, slept with one eye open. 200 miles away, Ruth found the first woman. Mary Hollister opened the door with shaking hands. "You're alive," Mary whispered. "Yes," Ruth said. "And I need your help," Mary cried as she told her story. Broken bones, lies, fear. "I'll testify," Mary said finally. "If I'm not alone." "You won't be," Ruth promised. Sarah Crane was harder to find. When Ruth did, Sarah tried to run. "He killed my daughter," Sarah sobbed. They said it was an accident. Ruth held her hands. "Help me stop him, please." Sarah's eyes hardened. "I will." Back at the ranch, Caleb fought off another visit. This time shots were fired. He took a graze to the arm. Blood stained the snow, but the children were safe. Sammy helped bandage him. "You didn't leave," Sammy said quietly. "No," Caleb replied. "I promised." When Ruth finally returned, she ran to her children and held them like she would never let go. Then she saw Caleb's wound. "What happened?" she demanded. "They tried," he said simply. "They failed." Her heart swelled with fear and gratitude. "He's in town," Caleb added. "Ezra, 3 miles away." Ruth closed her eyes. The final battle was coming, and this time she was ready. Ruth did not sleep the night Caleb told her Ezra was in town. She sat by the window with a blanket around her shoulders, watching the darkness like it might move. Every sound made her heart jump. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. Caleb stayed awake, too. He checked the rifle again. He paced once, then stopped, forcing himself still. "He'll come," Ruth said quietly. "I know," Caleb answered. "And when he does, we won't be alone." At dawn, a rider approached the ranch. A woman this time. Young, well-dressed, nervous. Ruth stepped onto the porch before Caleb could stop her. "My name is Caroline," the woman said. "I'm engaged to Ezra." Ruth's blood ran cold. Caroline's hands shook. "He's coming tonight, with men. He says he's taking what belongs to him." Ruth looked into the young woman's frightened eyes and saw herself from years ago. "He hit me," Caroline whispered. "I didn't believe the stories." "I believe them now." Ruth took her inside. Caroline knew names. Judges, deputies, men Ezra had paid. She knew where the lies were coming from and how deep they ran. "I'll testify," Caroline said. "I want him stopped." Caleb listened, face grim. "We don't have time to run." "Then we don't," Ruth said. "We stand." They went to town before sundown. Pastor Whitmore opened the church doors to them. He listened. He saw Caroline's bruises. He heard Mary and Sarah's voices shake but not break. At sundown, the church bell rang. People came, some curious, some angry, some afraid. Ruth stood at the front and told the truth. She spoke of the beatings, of the night she ran, of the bruise on her child's head. Mary spoke. Sarah spoke. Caroline spoke. Harlan stepped forward and admitted his silence. The room buzzed with whispers and anger. Then Ezra walked in. He smiled like he always had, calm, certain, dangerous. "Hello, Ruth," he said. Behind him stood armed men. Ezra's eyes landed on Sammy standing near the side door. "There's my boy," Ezra said softly. He moved fast, too fast. Ezra grabbed Sammy and pulled him close, one arm locked tight around the child's neck. Ruth screamed, "One more step," Ezra said calmly, "and he's dead." The room froze. Ruth stepped forward slowly. "Take me," she said. "Let him go." Ezra studied her, then smiled. "You finally learned." He released Sammy and grabbed Ruth. Caleb surged forward, but Ruth shook her head. "Protect them," she whispered. The church doors burst open. "Ezra Mallister!" a voice thundered. "You're under arrest." Sheriff Wheeler stepped inside with deputies. Ezra's smile vanished. Chaos erupted. Ezra lunged for Ruth. Caleb tackled him. Fists flew. A knife flashed. Ruth grabbed a heavy candlestick and swung with all her strength. Ezra collapsed. The knife clattered to the floor. Deputies rushed in. Guns were lowered. Ezra was cuffed, bleeding, defeated. "It's over," the sheriff said. The trial came 3 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Mary testified. Sarah testified. Caroline testified. Harlan testified. Ruth took the stand last. She did not cry. She did not shake. She told the truth. The verdict was guilty on every charge. Ezra was sentenced to life in prison. Ruth felt the weight lift from her chest for the first time in years. They returned to the ranch as a family. The children laughed again. Grace spoke more. Benny slept without nightmares. Sammy smiled without watching the door. One evening, Caleb stood beside Ruth on the porch. "You don't have to stay," she said softly. Caleb looked at her. "I want to." He knelt and asked her to marry him. Ruth said yes. They married in the yard with the children standing close. When Benny asked if Caleb was his papa now, Caleb said, "If you want me to be." "I do," Benny said. Grace squeezed Caleb's hand. Sammy shook it. "Thank you for keeping your promise." That night, Ruth slept without fear. The door was locked. The storm had passed, and for the first time, the winter felt like home.